For Packers fans that for years have been griping about change needing to come to the Green Bay Packers organization, they finally got it this past offseason. After over a decade in charge, Mike McCarthy, the longtime head coach of the Packers, Super Bowl champion head coach, was finally sent packing during the season. And out they go to get their version of Sean McVay and offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur. Now he's going to be the guy in charge. He's going to be the guy responsible for trying to rein in Aaron Rodgers a little bit and deal with Aaron Rodgers a little bit and trying to get the most out of Aaron Rodgers in the remaining years of his career. That was one big change. The other notable change that I think made Packers fans even more elated before the season started was that this team finally changed their tune a little bit when it came to free agency and spent some damn big money there, at least for the Packers. It's got to be considered big money. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner. For an organization over the years that, especially under Ted Thompson, had really almost arrogantly believed in their system to a fault where they said, we're just only going to draft and develop guys. We're not going to plug any holes anywhere else, which sounds great in theory until you get so close a couple of times and you can't get over the hump because you lack that impact player, you lack that difference maker. It's nice to see, if you're a Packers fan, that there was a change in philosophy, especially the way that that philosophy changed work this year. And it certainly did. This Green Bay Packers team got off to a great start, 8-2 heading into the bye. So you're talking about for a team that needed change, a team that needed to be freshened up a little bit, frankly, and you're not just trying to spray Axe body spray on it to cover up BO where you've just put body spray on BO. It still smells like crap. The Packers, after 10 games, are sitting there at 8-2. They're in first place in their division. The defense is having some games where it's playing really well. The offense has some games where it's playing really well. It was a really, really good start to the season. And the Packers in the regular season were able to maintain their momentum, and they ended up finishing 13-3, got the number 2 seed overall in the NFC playoffs, and they got a first-round bye, got a divisional round home game. Like, when you got to think about where the Packers were last year and where they ended up this year, that's a pretty nice turnaround in 1 year. It really, really was. Aaron Jones had over 1,000 yards rushing. Felt like the team was at least a little more committed to the running game. That certainly did not hurt. Took a little bit of pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. The Smiths, both Zadarius and Preston, had a really nice year for this Packers defense under defensive coordinator Mike Pettin. 25.5 combined sacks. Look, when you spend big money in free agency on 2 edge rushers, you want them to come in and have a big impact. 25.5 combined sacks from the both of them is a really big impact. So that certainly was money well spent for this organization. But what ultimately killed them was not Aaron Rodgers. It was the lack of playmakers on the outside, the lack of speed and explosiveness in this offense outside of Devontae Adams, who himself is not necessarily a fast or explosive type of athlete. He's really good, but it was those lack of playmakers. So at times you got Aaron Rodgers in the situation where he's looking to do whatever he can, sometimes looking to do too much, and all the while, the talent around him outside is betraying him a little bit. And whereas this team was able to hold off the Seahawks in the division round, that's the perfect description. They were able to hold them off because they got out to a big lead early, and then come the fourth quarter, here come Russ and the Seahawks, and they're battling back into it, and it's a one-score game. And the Packers, frankly, were lucky to win. And I thought all year that this Packers team was kind of smoke and mirrors. You usually see this every year. 1 or 2 teams that have a great regular season put up 12, 13 wins. And then they get to the playoffs and reality catches up with them. I never believed that this Packers team was great. I never believed that this Packers team was a Super Bowl contender. And honestly, I don't think any Packers fans did either. And maybe in part because of the whooping the 49ers had put on them in the Sunday night game early in the year, 35-8. That was the belief. It could have just been in general. Either way, heading into that NFC Championship game, at the Field of Jeans, I don't think any Packers fan really truly believed that they were going to beat the 49ers. And in fact, I think a lot of them anticipated they were going to get the brakes beat off of them. And that's exactly what happened. The offense couldn't get anything going early. The defense couldn't stop the 49ers. It was ugly. And yet again, for the third time in 6 years, the Green Bay Packers reached the NFC Championship game. A road game each time, I believe. Yes, Seattle was a road game. Atlanta's a road game. This was a road game. And all 3 times they came up short. So if you're a Packers fan, it's frustrating because you know you've been really blessed by the football gods over the year to have Brett Favre for a decade and a half and to be in the position you were so many times, and yet and still only got 1 Super Bowl out of that. And you've had Aaron Rodgers for over a decade now, and for all the success that he's had, all the talent that he has, all the success the team has had with him, you've ultimately got 1 Lombardi trophy to show for it and only 1 Super Bowl appearance during his time. At least Favre, he had 2 Super Bowl appearances. And as much as we could talk about the Packers over the past 2.5+ decades have been the gold standard of the NFC Central and now the NFC North by and large, and they certainly were and have been, the reality is since 1985, they have only 1 more championship than the sorry-ass, mediocre Chicago Bears do. So it's one thing to consistently screw up the quarterback position like the Chicago Bears have. It is one thing to embrace the mediocrity of the midway like the Chicago Bears organization and frankly a lot of their fan base does. It is another thing to have the legacy of tradition of Titletown, USA that the Packers do and have back-to-back first-ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks come through the doors of Lambeau Field and have a whopping 1 more Super Bowl championship than the damn Chicago Bears. And if you extrapolate that back out to 1985, they have 1 more Super Bowl appearance than the Chicago Bears. For God's sakes, the Bears made it to a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as their starting quarterback. Like, obviously, the Packers are a superior organization to the Bears in just about every way imaginable in modern NFL times. Yet and still, when you put it into perspective, it's more like it's Teasetown in Cheesetown than it is actual Titletown. Because they have spent a lot of years wasting Hall of Fame quarterbacks. A lot of organizations wish they had 1 Hall of Fame quarterback. The Green Bay Packers have been able to enjoy a stretch of 2.5+ decades of having 2 of them and have a whopping 2 world titles to show for it. That's not good. So the heat is on, I believe. The pressure is on as you go into this offseason. The Packers got to figure out something because you only get but so many of these opportunities, and you can't sit there and assume that the next quarterback you eventually draft to take the place of Aaron Rodgers is going to play at the same level of Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre. You just can't. And in this case for the Packers, with the big money they spent in free agency, the big money they gave to Davante Adams, the big money they had to give to Aaron Rodgers, they've only got $20 million in salary cap space. Now, I know they just cut Jimmy Graham, which is going to open up a little bit more. But this is a team that needs to figure out a way to get a little bit better and has limited flexibility to be able to do so. In terms of their own free agents, Brian Bulaga, I'd be surprised if he's back. You got Geronimo Allison, maybe they'll bring him back. Blake Martinez, maybe. Kyler Fackrell, probably not. This is a team that's got to get aggressive, though. And they've really got to get aggressive potentially in terms of the draft, which is not something that this organization usually does. I would say that, but then also come back and say the good thing for the Packers is that their number 1 need is speed on the outside. The number 1 need is skill on the outside. And this draft class is really loaded at the wide receiver position. So whereas they're picking 30th in round number 1, they don't have to feel the pressure to have to take a guy at number 30 at that position. They don't necessarily have to feel the need to trade up a little bit to get their guy. They could potentially even trade back, let the board fall to them, and let the chips fall where they may. But there's also an element to me that says they really need a game breaker on the outside to go opposite of Davante Adams. And the best way to potentially ensure that is to potentially make quite a sizable move up the draft board to go get somebody, a Henry Ruggs III, a CeeDee Lamb, a Jerry Jeudy, whoever it might be. One of those 3 guys would be very, very nice for Aaron Rodgers in that Packers offense. But wide receiver is their number 1 need. I think tight end is also a need. When you think about it, they really haven't had a tight end that's made a big difference for them since Jermichael Finley, and that's quite a number of years ago now. As Aaron Rodgers winds down his career a little bit, you need better than what you've got there. And I think in terms of Bulaga, a lot of Packers fans are certainly ready to probably move on from that experience and try and draft a young offensive tackle that can play there and better protect Aaron Rodgers for the next several years to come. Which also then brings up the question, is it time to consider taking a quarterback early and doing what you did with Aaron Rodgers years ago when you still had Brett Favre? I don't know if the time is nigh now, but it's going to be very, very soon. Now, they certainly could use a little work on the defensive side of the ball. I think they could use somebody at inside linebacker. You could always use more depth outside in terms of edge rushers. Even though you got the Smiths, they're studs. Having another guy, there's nothing illegal about doing that. But they got to get better on the offensive side of the ball. How ironic is that? A team with Aaron Rodgers, a future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, and we're talking about the offense has got to get better. But if you didn't see it this year during the regular season, you certainly saw it against the 49ers. They lacked speed, playmakers, guys that could get open in tight spots. And if they can't find those guys, then the Packers are going to just end up wasting another year of Aaron Rodgers' career.